Hello, lovelies. Arika with Skeinsnsticks here to show you a few little things about the um, chain reaction square. So first, a lot of questions I've been getting is about whether or not this is a stranded work. So this is actually mosaic knitting. So I keep saying it's not stranded, it's not stranded, it's not stranded. And I guess I thought about it and it's like 0.5% stranded. How about that? So there are strands that will be used, but not in the same way that we think of when we think about stranded knitting, because you can see there are times where the yarn is carried, but that is the color that you're already working. So the main thing about mosaic knitting is that you are working with a single color every 2 rows. So while there is typically a 2-color scheme, one color is worked every 2 rows. So there's no thought process behind making sure that you're carrying the yarn all the way through. So that's one of the benefits to mosaic knitting. So basically what happens is, this is the right way here, is as you're working, I haven't done my ends yet, so no judgment, so I'm starting a row with blue, I go all the way across with blue, and then I come back with blue and I pick up the yellow. I leave the blue there because I completed row 1 and 2 with blue, and then I'll take my yellow and work my yellow across and work my yellow back, leave yellow there, blue is still waiting, pick it up and go on. That's the cool thing about mosaic. There's no need to carry yarn with you along each row. So that I want to explain that. And then also another thing is, because if you are just a perfectionist or type A, or for in this case, because it's going to be different squares are going to be added together, if you wanted to have neater, cleaner edges, so you see how those edges are not the they don't look like the knotted edges that you would normally have if you just simply knit as normal. This is the bind off, but here's the other border edge. So how I do that is I have a very, very, very tiny swatch in a different color just to go over some of these concepts. So after I show you the whole edge situation, well, I'll do it now. So pause on straight edges, okay? Let's talk about bobbins. So for this project, I have 4 bobbins. You can see here. I'll have my contrasting color, my main color, and the border color, which is the main color as well. So my 2 borders are in the same color bobbins, just for my own sake of sanity. So I know that they are at the end of the process here. Actually, my 2 borders are they? All right, I didn't do that. So normally I would have my 2 borders in the same color, just so I know. But in this case, I didn't do that, but I know what's going on. So for your sake, if you're using bobbins, your borders, put them in the same color bobbins if they are color coded, just so that you can keep straight what's going on. And then I have my main color here and then the contrasting color. So that's how I keep everything straight. Now I just did a random swatch of, I don't even know what I'm doing here, but just to kind of give you an idea of how the colors and the bobbins, how everything works together. All right. So this is still feels like butter yarn though. It's just in gray and yellow. Let's start with the edges. So to achieve those edges, if you hadn't already known this before, is super simple. So you will start off with a purlwise slip. Okay. I'm not afraid to take it off. Like, if you are, you can keep it on there, but this is the way that I do it. And then you want to take that tail of yarn, the working yarn, and bring it to the working side, so the wrong side of your work as you're working. And then all you do is slip it back in and begin to work as normal. So that's all I did, was a purlwise slip, and then move it to the back. Insert the needle back in. I do not work this because I wanted to continue to have that chain like straight edge. Okay. For our border for this square, it's knit knit and then purl purl. So you just work as normal. All right, and then I'm going to show you how to make sure that your border locks in place, right? Because that's another big issue. So typically when you're working borders like this, so that my yarn is already kind of trying to break away because it's such a small swatch. Let me just make sure here, guys. Okay, and everything is getting tangled. You want to make sure that stuff doesn't get tangled. Okay, so the natural inclination of the yarn when you're working borders is to have this gap here, which is what we're trying to fight against when we're trying to lock the border in. So I'm going to move my marker here just so I can know where my border is. And this row is going to be a yellow row. But the last row that I just finished was the gray row. And that's why both my yellow and my gray are in the front. So when working with bobbins in different colors, all you have to do is just pick up those two bobbins, and one of them is mixed up. Okay, make sure everything is square. Pick everything up and move it to the back. And that's why bobbins are cool too, just because they're less cumbersome than the big balls and skeins and cakes of yarn that you're going to be using. So, so after I've done that, make sure everything is okay. That's what was going on. I got it. All right. So now, this row begins with the contrasting color, which in my case is yellow, and I have just completed my 4 border stitches, and now I want to start the main patterning with the contrasting color. How to lock it in place when you're doing borders. Step 1, what you want to do is make sure the yarn that you're using, so the working yarn, the non-working yarn is the border yarn, as well as the main color yarn from the previous row. So those are the other two non-workings. Okay, so you want to make sure that the working yarn, when you're starting your first stitch from the border, after the border stitch, so after that purl, you are going to take your working yarn, place it underneath your non-working yarn. Okay, so in this case, the yellow is underneath both purple. I mean both, I don't know where I got purple from, both gray. So like this, let's see. And then in order to lock it, you're going to actually bring it up and over the same non-working yarn. Let me move this because it's going to confuse everybody. You get out. Okay, so you see how that went from just being right behind everything, it's just behind everything, and then use of a bobbin, super simple, just move it from right to left, and then I'll have it kind of come over, and this would be the mechanism to lock. So then I'll start my stitching. I'll hold these guys just to give me a peace of mind that it's locking. You can already see that it's sort of starting to lock. Okay, and then I'll do my first stitch. Let's just say it was a knit stitch. I'm totally making up this middle part here. So let's just say it was a knit stitch for the first stitch. And then I can, if I wanted to, I can pull the, give it a little tiny pull, the border yarn, just so I can see that it's working where it's locking in place. So you're gonna have a little gap there because that's normal, but it's not going to be a continuing gap that's gonna cause a hole. But that's how you're gonna keep that going. So let's just say this whole row is, and then I'll slip this one. Just making this part up. So then I get to the next border, same thing. So I'm working with, this is my working yarn. And now I don't need that anymore since I'm at the border. So now my working yarn has changed. My new working yarn is now the left side border yarn, and the contrasting color for the main work is now my non-working yarn. So working yarn behind non-working yarn. All right, so now the yellow is on top, and then to lock it, I'm going to bring it up and over. Make sure that we got that locked. All right, I'm going to hold that, and the first stitch for the border is a purl, so then you just go as normal. So my 2 purls and then my 2 knits. Okay, so that is the whole concept for one. Oh, I should have split it. One, working with bobbins. 2, keeping the edges straight. And 3, working with borders in different colors. I'm just making sure all this is, because I had to add yarn and the swatch is so small. Okay, so yeah, that's basically the main point of all that. So again, to achieve the borders, you're just going to slip purlwise, move it around, and then continue to work as normal. Okay, and then to make sure that you are locking your border, you're going to go ahead, bring that over, and then I'm going back to yellow, right? So I'm going to bring that. This is why bobbins are cool, because they're a little smaller to maneuver around things, even when they get caught. Okay. All these are going to be in the front anyways. So got my yellow. Now this is now my new working yarn I'm going to need. This is my non-working. So non-working over that, and then hold, make sure you lock. All right. I got my little knot, and then I just continue on with the pattern. So those are the main facets, and as you see, I'm not carrying anything. So when I have to do to change the color, like with this one, all I have to do is just slip it, and I'm still working with the color that I had started the row with. I'm not changing colors midway to be forced to use the stranded method. Okay, so that's basically the main tenets of how to work this guy here in the mosaic, and in keeping the borders connected and working with the 2 colors. Okay, I hope this helps someone. Have a good day.